Welcome back, everybody. This is the Refresh Point. My name is Ben, and as always, I'm joined by my constant co-host, Steve. Steve, how's it going?
We are barely hanging on. We've got the entire strain of the holiday season on us, but we're trying to forget about it for a little while and talk about some Weiss Schwarz.
Let's talk about some Weiss Schwarz.
Let's talk about the end of the year.
We lied to you. Last episode wasn't the last episode of the year. This one is. Boom! Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Ben wanted to squeeze in one more recording so we could give thanks for all the great things that have happened this year in a year of Refresh Points.
Yes. And so as the year comes to a close, we've got this one more holiday episode to send to your ears before 2024 comes around. We'll look at the results from Anaheim, which, if you looked at the top 8, you'll know I went to somehow. Talk about Guilty Gear's release and look back at our first year-ish of doing the Refresh Point. So, shuffle your decks, tap or cut, and we'll get right into the Refresh Point with some breaking news. I didn't believe in Two Souls Slime, and so I told somebody before Duluth that if I had won Duluth, I would take Two Souls Slime to Anaheim just for fun. And I expected to go X2 and like drop out around 4 or 5 or so and go farm some Lunar New Year's promos from the Shadowverse side event and, you know, get out in time to get dinner at a reasonable place at a reasonable time. No. I went 7-2 in Swiss with just like the most brain dead, like think nothing, do nothing mindset ever. And it just worked.
That's great. I love that. I love slime.
It's so just like I felt disgusted at the time.
Well, that's good. That's how you should feel.
Yeah. And like and I think it also echoes a scripted Weiss's mindset as well. I think he whenever he took the Two Soul Slime to, I think it was France, I think he had a similar sentiment. And I'm just sitting here like, I guess if they don't block, then it will just work.
Yeah, and you had a couple of just don't block scenarios that were pretty disgusting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll get into that. But congratulations to my boy John, who I met in round 2 of that tournament, who won with Elizabeth Hendrickson. And my boy was a doomer. He was like, nah, I lost. I got to win out 7 rounds? That's so much. And I was like, nah, you got to have it. You gotta believe in it. Because obviously I didn't care. So I was like, nah, dude, you got it. I believe in you. I'll see you in top 8. Screw it. Now, the funny thing is, I did see him in top 8. I was his quarters opponent. Great thing for me, though, because I didn't care and I was rooting for him. I drew out 6 climaxes by turn 2 and I was like, it's over. I'm like, I understand the lose condition for this deck, and it's this. It's this exact scenario.
Yeah, not a lot of deck speed in the old Two Soul Slime deck.
No siree. So yeah, I mean, congratulations to John. Congratulations to everybody else who went to Anaheim and got top 8. It was very cool. Very cool to meet you, dude.
Yeah.
Cool to meet everybody in Anaheim. Shoutouts to Dr. Disco, who 6 soul punched himself to death and just immediately ate it. He was inspired by the Standby Slime top from Duluth, and he was like, oh, I've been cooking with Mask the whole time, so I feel validated. I'm gonna bring it to Anaheim. And then I slammed it 2 soul when he was out 4, and it didn't go much better after that. But you were very cool. Shout outs to you.
putting down the rug and then rug pulling all in just one sweet maneuver.
It was so funny. He was like, "No, why'd you do that? You're supposed to be playing this one.
You were the chosen one.
You were the chosen one." Nah, but real shout outs to you. He ended the day X3, and like he's only been playing for like a year. He's already a very good, very competent player.
There's nothing I'd love to hear more than the people who have been playing for a short period of time, already deep in the competitive scene and doing well. It means a lot for the longevity of the game. It means a lot for all of us who take the game seriously, because it's very easy to collect anime cards and signs and be like, yep, there's definitely a game here, but that's not really for me. It's like, well, if you give the game a chance, you might be surprised at what you think of it. So
yeah. And speaking of shiny cards, though, Guilty Gear released.
There we go. Great news for all the people who are trying to collect Guilty Gear, because this might be the cheapest max rarity of all time.
Nah, that's fake. That's a lie. Because the real answer is all the individual SPs and OFRs relatively cheap, right? You know, prices not so bad.
No.
200, 100. The chip SP, I got like $35 for both copies.
I think there's probably like 5 or 6 SPs that cannot be sold for more than $30.
Yeah. And so, but here's the problem. For like a meta list, you run a lot of these foils, these not $30 SPs and OFRs, and it'll stack up real quick on you.
I mean, if you're gonna play Ramlethal, then
yeah.
Still though, I think the entire like max rarity deck is probably like sub 3K if you were discerning.
Yeah, if you have like a reasonable deck list. Now, if you were playing, say, Kai Mei as a deck list, and you just really were in on that,
Kai Mei is really reasonable, actually.
Yeah.
You get to cut out the 800 or so bucks of Ramlethal finishers that you need.
Ramlethal finishers?
Yeah, the 3-2.
It's the SP, isn't it? Like 100, 200 now. It's spiked. Well, congrats on your release price, guy who bought my Ram OFR and Ram SP.
Ram OFR, on the other hand, that's not reasonable.
No. I mean, that's the thing. I've given up. Like Ram OFR, that's next year. That's a next year project. Just by herself.
There's a couple ways to approach a max rarity. You can either approach it with, you get the big boulders first, and then you kind of slowly fill in the foils.
Yeah.
Or the way I like to do it, and the way it sounds like you're doing it, get all the foils out of the way on release when they're still available and everybody's got them, and then later on you'll have to just one brick at a time grab those, the most expensive pieces of it.
Yeah. So thanks to some of the people that cracked the May OFR, I do have the full playset of the May OFR, and I think you cracked a Kai OFR, which we'll be negotiating over probably after this episode. And somebody at one of our locals cracked another one, so I have 2 Kai OFRs on lock. I was also, I was in an auction for another one. I wonder what the state of that is. Unironically,
I think I saw it the other day and it hadn't moved very much, so it's typical.
So
typical auction style, it doesn't move until right before it's gonna sell, and then it just flies from that point. So
yeah.
You have to keep a close eye on it tomorrow, because that's when all your action will be.
Yeah, for sure. But I have all the triple rares, and I got a few other kind of like easy to pick up SPs, which was nice. I got like I stole like the Faust SPs and the Chip SPs because I got them for like 40s or below, or just like I pulled like I pulled like a gold Lewis SP and traded somebody for a Faust copy, and I only run 2 Faust. And I was
Holy
like,
crap.
easy.
What I'll say is that TCG Player right now is highly unreliable for Guilty Gear sales. A lot of this stuff has no sales at all. So
Yeah.
it's likely that it's overpriced at its current price, and its current price is very low. So we're likely
Yeah.
to see even lower prices as we go forward.
I think I can see the OFRs like going up by just pure rarity's sake.
Yeah.
You know, there's just not enough of them. So like the Ramlethal.
The thing is that we now have like verified pricing for May at 150, like sold pricing.
Oh, really?
And so like you can offer it at 225, but I mean,
I think, yeah.
it's all about buyer discerning at this point.
Yeah, I think 200 is like still a reasonable May price. I saw like TCG Player was trying to spike it up to like 250.
I think it's gonna flatten out, like Ramlethal 250,
Yeah,
May 200, Kai 100, everybody else less.
yeah. And so, you know, so my project, I've got, there's so little SRs in the deck. It's so annoying. Like, I took stock at one point and I was like, I need like 17 SP OFRs and 4 more SRs. Oh, I just pulled one. 3
Wow.
more SRs.
That's crazy.
Just like, it's ridiculous. Giovanna's an SP. Ino's an SP.
Are you not running Kai, the 0?
Yeah,
That's
the
a
on Death
foil.
Katsuki. Yeah, that's an SR. I got all 3 of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank goodness. What else? Goodness. I mean,
Oh,
like I could pull it out.
yeah. One thing we also want to talk about while we're talking about Guilty Gear and collecting, it's been my experience, and I've heard this experience from other people, that the double R situation is a little bit whack.
Dude, it's nasty. There is not a double playset in a case.
No, we ended up being, I think, 6 short in our case, and that is.
I haven't gotten the opportunity to count, to be fair, but the funny thing is, as much as I loved May, I definitely pulled only 6 copies. And I was like, well, it's a good thing I'm getting OFRs, and I can like maybe sell a second playset.
Yeah, I wanted to build a second deck.
Yeah, it's just hard.
Build a real deck for my for a second Ramlethal deck, and yeah, they're very hard to locate.
It's difficult. Yeah. So yeah, good luck. Good luck if you're trying to have multiple playsets of this set, because it's rough.
Yeah, the foils are out there though, and they're cheap, like super duper cheap. And so if you want to like flirt with max rarity a little bit, I mean, you've got lots of options.
So I'm playing, and arguably I might like replace this Giovanna with the Jacko like drop search on memory.
Yeah.
But right now it's green, it's a clock bomb, it goes to memory.
I like that card a lot.
Yeah, like it's just a very straightforward, like, find enough card to run in my specific list for Kai Mei that's like trying to set up Geo turn 1 basically.
Yeah, I think that card's really important for the Geo setup, or
So
some type of on reverse setup.
And so I need to get 2 Kai Kai's also an SP. The Restander is an SP. I pulled one, thankfully. So I need 2 Kais. I guess I need 4 Kais, technically. 2 and 2 of like 1-0s and 3-2s. Like 2 Giovannas and just the full playset of Ramlethal and triple Eno. Just like jam it down my wallet, you know?
I don't know. It looks like there's quite a few foils for most of the decks that would be meta.
Like Eno Giovanna is like a real quick 1-2 punch of like, they're probably gonna be cheap, but because so many people might want to get them, I feel like they're gonna start going.
Eno is already kind of going.
Yeah.
So Ramlethal wasn't as high as I thought. She's flirting with like 130, and Eno is nearly there now. So that's kind of annoying. There is a decent spread of foils that you're gonna have to or want to pick up. Probably there's the Testament Drop Search, the
SR Wise, clean cut,
the Soul Back Row, the Baiken Zero, the Ram Familiars, the
Fumio, Giovanna,
I'm sorry, my mind's blanking on me. The Clean Cut, I think, is a foil.
Yep,
and then
Clean Cut's a foil.
if you're running the Something in the Warehouse, that's a foil. I keep calling it that. Presidential meeting. Is that what it is? Okay.
No, I mean everybody calls it what they first called it. On the Tressa's discussion on Guilty Gear, it was Operation Tornado for them, right?
Oh, sure.
So yeah.
Yeah, so Operation Tornado wasn't as big in English as it was in JP, and so that's from Angel Beats. So
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
It was a while ago.
Yeah, but yeah. Guilty Gear's out. We've talked about it, I think, in the last 3 episodes, unironically. So, I don't think there's many other thoughts from us about it.
Yeah, sadly, it's going to fall into the same window as SDS did last year, where it's you're just not going to... We're not going to know exactly how it's going to perform until somebody breaks it out and tries to perform with it. So.
Yeah. And
I think that'll be one of those things that I think a lot of us have been looking at the set from every angle, and so because of that, I don't think there'll be anything that'll surprise me too much. But if it does well at Worlds, it will be Ramlethal that does it, in my opinion. This is maybe the most efficient finisher in the history of Weiss. This is as efficient as Marine.
Yeah. Honestly,
it costs nearly nothing to pull off, and it's just 6 packets right in your face.
Yep.
Now they're bigger packets than Marine, which is kind of 6 in one, half a dozen in the other. It just depends on game state. Is it easier to stick 2s? Sure, but if you stick 3s, then they just die. So it's a bit more complicated, but yeah, I think no matter what does well for it, it will be Ramlethal as the top end.
And so with that, let's go into somewhere familiar, a place that you adore the most out of all of us.
It really, it's like my second home. It's like if I'm not at home, that's where I am.
It's the Spike Corner.
Yeah, we're headed right back into the Spike Corner.
Right in. And so I went to Anaheim, and I thought that I was gonna scrub out, so I didn't start taking notes until later when I realized I was like, oh, this might just be real for no reason whatsoever.
I mean, it's been an incredible season for you, and you've done well at almost every event you've gone to, so not sure why you didn't think you'd do well. But
I was coping that a degenerate strategy would coin flip tails and I would scrub out within 4 rounds.
Sure.
Now instead, the degenerate strategy coin flipped heads the whole way through, and we made it.
Right till the end, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
This is the largest event of the BCS events of this season. I think we talked about it before, and we knew that it would be. Because California has a robust Weiss scene, and this is the last shot for a lot of people to try and qualify for Worlds. So the combination of those two things is going to yield a very large event. The deck that won, Elizabeth Hendrickson, we talked about this deck before. I faced this deck at Houston when Riaz was running it.
And like I mentioned, I fought him round 2 and in quarters.
Yeah, and this is the type of deck that is trying to win with math, where you try to create a situation where your opponent's deck state cannot be good by stock swapping them and then force refreshing them and then burning them for 4 and scrying the top and doing everything possible to rob them of their blocks.
Yep. Yeah.
So a very reasonable approach, probably the most reasonable SDS deck to pilot given the way the meta is right now. And There's nothing
yeah.
nothing surprising about this list at all. It's very much the list that you would think it would be.
Yeah, and to do like a really quick dive back into some of our comments, Jesse, who won Mexico, was also there and is a friend of John's. At least I'm pretty sure his name is Jesse. I guess we didn't clarify. But 212 Dead reminded me of the comment that I basically said to everybody at this regional. I was like, all right, I mean, I have no stakes. You want to win? Fair enough to you. And you know what? If you cancel here, it's between you and God. And I slammed a 2-soul in their face, and, 7 people ate it.
Yeah. It's one of those things that is kind of becoming more ubiquitous in the current meta, is that there are a number of decks that are like, okay, here's a lot of damage. If you don't block, this game is going to get bad fast.
Yeah. And like, we're not going to talk that much about my games at Anaheim because it's very easily summed up in my 2 losses were I drew out 6 by turn 2 against Nino, and Nino had aborted damage and I had nothing. And so I lost. And then there was a mirror match where I fought a standby slime that did block, and so it was just strictly even. We just had like a normal slime mirror match basically, and I ended up miracle blocking, and then he ended up miracle blocking. So since he did it second, I died.
Right.
And then in quarters, I lost the same way I lost to the Nino player. I just drew out 6 by like turn 2 and died. And so, but that always felt like that was just like the loss condition.
Yeah.
There were like 4 games where I was like, 6? Take 6. 4? Take 4. All right. And then another like 2 or 3 games where it was like 4 and 4 and 4. You took one of them? Good enough. All right. Here's Muron. All right. Here's my finisher. Did you die? All right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think ultimately what you're looking at when you're talking about this sort of build is the exact same thing that makes slime good in a shell that is going to just accelerate the game state to a point where your finishers cannot possibly fail. And so when you build a damage lead for an okay finisher, then things are going to work out just a lot better. And so the timing of the push and pull of the game is very similar to other builds where you push them to 3, they see that you're not at 3, you're not even close to 3, and then they have to play a scrub turn. If you hit 3, they lose the game. If you have 2 clock encore guys, they lose the game anyway, even if you don't hit 3. And so it's like,
yeah, I mean, talking about the strategy more, like, with some context from the games, though, like, hitting the opponent to 3 when you're even at early 2 in this metagame still is a little spooky. And, like, I enjoyed the playstyle of Standby Slime being able to strand and just be like, you're at 2-4, stay there. I'm gonna go get infinite money. And you can just make your deck worse, right? Because like I got nearly comebacked like 3 different times that day. It was like oh, this data bullet just like 810. Oh, but they blocked at 3. Oh, well, I'm at 2-3, but I just double triggered and he has double data bullet finisher with the level 3 in his clock, so I'm dead. And then I miracle blocked, and I was like, all right, you're dead. But it like, at round 3, I played against Shizukatsu from Tressa's, and like, I just damaged him to 3, so now my counterplay doesn't work. He's playing Overlord, and so he gets to set up the board, and if he blocks 1 turn, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of near death here. And so I'm like, does Shion Benimaru work? And it did, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, it is an emotional part of the game, but it's something I'm also grappling with while trying to learn or trying to figure out which worlds deck I'm going to play. there are not a lot of finishers that work from 2-4 or less. Like, even the ones that you think would. Like, if your opponent has double Gura and you're 2-4, you're probably pretty safe. Like,
given regular compression.
Yeah. Like, the chance of you dying from that is not great. Like, your opponent really has to send it, and you have to get incredibly unlucky. Like, the burn ones have to fish climaxes, and they need to be staggered in a way where, like, a 4 has to get in there somewhere in order to make the whole process, like, reasonable. But as long as you block all the 4s, then it's not even close to being enough damage to kill you. And so there's this perspective when you're not playing those type of finishers that they can kill you from literally infinite ways away. And then when you start to play those finishers, you're like, actually not as great as I thought it would be. Because that's kind of the appeal, right? Like, the appeal of the Hololive build is that, like, okay, I got this guy that's, like, gives me so much more reach than I should ever reasonably have. And it's like, yeah, but it can whiff. And when it does, it's kind of spectacular how bad it does. So it's good to keep that in mind, is that no matter, like, how dangerous your finisher might be, you need to keep an eye on, like, the fact that the math may not be with you in those type of situations. Sure, you can still pull it out. And if you don't have any other, like, your back's against the wall and there's no other plays to make, then that's the play, right? But forcing a play like that at that time of the game is probably not correct. And it's one of those things that I'm trying to work on right now, is, like, when do you go for it? Like, when do you send it? Like, with clock mechanics or whatever, like, if you're it's either play a stuck turn or send it. And it's like, okay, well, how hard can you send it?
Yeah. And that's another reason why I'm, like, perfectly, like I'm just gonna keep playing Slime, because especially with the double Shion, like, board finisher, it's like, it's deceptively good in that you're like, okay, it's 2 bird 4s and 2 shots and 2 swings and a guy. But, like, it technically has enough reach. Like, if you're at, like, 2-5 and you eat one of the bird 4s, this is now spooky, you know?
Yeah, it's the same story, but in an even more, like, explosive way. The biggest thing that separates Slime's sort of finishers like that from everybody else's sort of finishers like that is that they have a level 0 stock swap that can come in.
Yes.
And, like, make plays in a situation where, like, artificially create a play that shouldn't exist. Because the timing of it is literally infinite. It's like, whatever the worst time would be, I can do this. And so a lot of times, if your opponent's going to hit 3 first, they can compress down infinite, because they know I'm going to hit 3 first and I will get the payout before the stock swap comes in to kill me. And against Slime, you cannot do that. And frequently, if you try to do that, like, you set up a 10 or 11 or 12 stock setup because you're, like, a heavy compression deck, and then you want to do a big payout, they will catch you in that, like, interim period if they have the money, and they will punish hard. And so that's another reason why I like the standby deck, is because you can drop the punish for that so much easier when you have more extra stock to go to.
Yeah.
It's like, as soon as you see your opponent's like stock state in a super disrespectful way at 2, you're just like, okay, we'll take this. Now you're gonna get it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, the benefits to the 2-soul list is, like, the game scamming, you know, that, like, is inherent with 2-soul. But it's also that it is, for quote-unquote toolbox deck, it's actually fairly limiting. Because at the end of the day, now you're just kind of limited to, like, the game is super fast. So, like, the only real play that we have is, like, make sure I have double Shion in my hand.
Yeah.
Or, like, Shion Benimar, or, like, whatever finisher I'll be able to afford in 2 turns, get it.
Yeah, and then obviously Miron can set up whatever it is that you need to set up.
But it's just, but like,
with Quad Bonder, like, the Miron inevitability feels high.
Yeah, for sure. It's like the problem with it is game speed, in that you're probably not gonna have another Muron turn by virtue of like
No,
the game. You know, like
you get one Muron turn.
you get one Muron turn, and you know, like if we didn't get our Rickies in the early game, then like our hand's been bleeding the whole time. You know,
Yeah, it's the
like all sorts of different stuff, and so like it makes the kind of like devastating plays of like stock swap double Xion all in one turn, like very much out of the question.
Yeah, very hard
right?
to pull. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like you're trading like a more flexible deck for a deck that has more explosive potential.
It's super helmet. It's just a super helmet deck, because the choices become a lot like, especially if you've already been playing Slime, the 2-soul list is even more helmet. You're like,
it's very linear. Yeah.
get the Muron. And also I agree with like the potions tech, because frequently you need to spend the money on the Muron.
Yeah.
So potions lets you get more money instead, and then if you need the hexproof for like your finishing turn, you search it with Muron.
Right.
And like, and it does, and like I've used the heal like 2 or 3 times like in Anaheim unironically, and it just like it's a very specific 2-soul thing feeling.
Yeah.
For sure. But yeah, like
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where the 2-soul deck has a very tight grip on its clock and very good control over it. So they're the level that they want to be. And if they want to be higher level, there's not any way to really arrest that. Like, it's gonna happen.
Like, you know, human Muron on the board and in hand means play over, play over, play over, oh. Or not play over, it's like encore, 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 I'm level 3.
Right.
You know?
Or I'm level 2. Like,
yeah.
or, you know, it's like,
Either
okay,
way.
well, I'm ready for the Muron turn now.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, whatever. The biggest, obviously we've already talked about it, but like the biggest thing you have to worry about is your deck speed is hot garbage.
Oh yeah,
So
horrible.
So like
Disgusting.
you're down to brainstorming like every turn probably, and it's
Yeah.
just like, okay, this is just who we are.
Yeah.
And
And
so-
it, like, it's even worse somehow, where it's like sometimes, you know, there's just 5 left in there and we
You just
can't
eat all of
brainstorm.
that. Yeah,
We
You just-
can't.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's like, you know, like half the deck left, I mean, there's 5 in there. Like, I can't be trying to mill it out, you know?
Yeah, it's one of those things where a lot of times you're just like, all right, I guess we attack because
Yep.
there's nothing else to do.
Yep. And that's
And-
why it's helmet.
Yeah.
There's just less.
Yeah. But you know, when you have a lot of other pluses to like lean on for value, then that's what enables you to just cram 2 souls into a deck and say, okay, well, it's probably gonna still work out, and it does. So
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say about the list is that it feels almost too easy to know the outcome of the game after I mulligan. Like, every game that I mulligan and I went like, yep, that's 2 red Rickies. Cool. We got it.
Yeah.
2 red Rickies, 1 2-soul. This will be enough. Or like, rip out 3 climaxes, discard 2, rip out another one. I probably lost this game. And like, it just manifests because, and like, if I had to, like, if I do end up actually running this over standby to Worlds, I would probably tech in just the pay to refresh, because it's a 0/0 on play, pay to refresh the deck, and like the other effect is irrelevant because it's involving some other event that's not relevant. And honestly, like in the Nino game that I played in Anaheim, if I could have yellow Rickied to it, I would have at least had like 7 climaxes back in the deck. You know what I mean?
yeah, not a lot of yellow Rickies in that build, is there?
3? No?
Oh, really?
No, I just, every plussing mechanic we can have, like, we
Sure.
gotta have it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you're just trading your whole life bar for their whole life bar.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, dude.
So
Unironically, yes.
well, to round out the rest of the top 8, we have a whole bunch of Muron decks in the top 8, 2
Yeah.
standbys and a 2 souls. Hopefully, like, not to sound like an absolute hater, but like,
Yeah.
Bushiroad, please, come on. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, what you did is not enough. Clearly. We've got a Hololive deck, another Hololive deck going to Worlds, potentially in third with Chloe Marine. This is like a door.
Yep.
Like a reasonable deck in an unreasonable time.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
I'm not over surprised to see a deck like this kind of crack in there, but it's the type of deck that I feel like plays very fairly, and I don't know if that's a good thing in the current meta. But what I will say is that red 2/1 is like the most piss annoying thing possible for slime decks. So I mean, if you're surrounded by slimes, then like, yeah, maybe that is the move.
Yeah. Also shout out to the Itsuki deck, and the Azure Lane 8-bar deck, and the Review Starlight Choice Pants deck. Sure. Yeah, dude. Review Starlight, secretly OP. You know, it just got top at the last 2 regionals of the year. One at the biggest regional of the year. Indeed.
Yeah. So I don't know what Choice Pants is.
Yeah, I can explain it in a second, but I see you have Azure Lane pulled up. So let's talk about 8-bar. It's not a list that we've really looked at.
Yeah, so we're talking about a, this is the classic 8-bar deck in the sense that it's like, I am trying to play a climax every single turn for the entire game. But this is not the Taiho bar, which is the bar that I think we would all anticipate to be the advantage engine for a typical Azure Lane deck. This is the Ayanami bar. So it's a 1-0 4500 during your turn 65, and then when it attacks, if you have the bar down, you check 4 and you add 1, and then if you add a level 3 or higher, you get to draw and discard. So that seems totally fine. I mean, the reason they've decided to pilot at 8-bar is because there's a bar support in green at level 1. If you have experience 2, then it gets the following ability. When you trigger a bar, you can clock swap by discarding a card. So this is the Fate bar support. This is probably the best of the bar support mechanics. So very, very strong. So yeah, that all seems reasonable. And then for the finisher, this is an encore healer, and then experience. When it attacks, you need experience 6. This is a put the top 9 cards of your deck in the waiting room, and then deal 1 damage to your opponent X times. X is the number of climaxes revealed.
Yep.
So this thing can totally kill the crap out of you. That's a lot. That's a lot of ones potentially.
Yeah.
But tripling this feels like impossible, right?
What's the cost on attack? Pitch 2, yeah.
So like, you can't triple this thing. That's not even a real possibility. So they do have the Hakuryu off finisher, which is the pay 3 and ditch 1 to burn 2, with experience 8.
Yeah.
So we've got some like, and they have the pay 1, ditch 1, burn 1 Azuma finisher. It's like every other Hololive. It's like every other Azure Lane deck where it's got like 25 level 3s in it because we need experience 8. Yeah. So I think this is a very reasonable sort of build. If you get the compression down and sculpt it correctly, like this finisher could be extremely devastating. So,
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then of course we have the cats on the bottom end because why wouldn't we? And then the unicorn brainstorm. So
yeah, talking about cats. Actually, before talking about cats, a quick review checkup. So this pants finisher is on attack, pay 1, assign somebody, on Soul Trigger, burn 1 twice. We have this handy dandy off finisher that has been discussed before. That is on reverse, pay 2, ditch 2, burn 3, and it lets you draw a card and check your top 3 and rearrange, which you might, rearrange to have a Soul Trigger on your guy that's gonna burn 1 repeatedly.
Yeah. It also gets humongous.
Oh yeah, 12k base,
4,500 power. No, the blue.
Oh yeah, the blue, yeah.
The actual pants combo itself.
Yeah, it's like
4,500 power.
Yeah, 14.5, 15.5. Congrats.
And very cheap, so let's just pay 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of our locals has been cooking it with standby, and dude, I definitely believe in the standby a little bit more than the choice by itself, because you obviously you play the choice 1 combo because it has a Soul Trigger on it. But hear me out. That doesn't have to be the 1 combo.
Yeah, you can just like put it in the deck just like people used to do with Mori. Like it's very similar in ideology where it's like you could either play the Mori combo because it's Mori and because it's like there's a synergy there for resources, or you could just run standby like an absolute like fiend. Yeah,
but this standby combo feels a little better, and running standby gives you like more natural ways to like jam more Soul Triggers into the deck. But what I will say, it is interesting that they're running it's a check 4 or check 5 event that adds a Soul Trigger card to your hand. So yeah, it's a check. Oh nope, this is not the event I thought it was.
It's just check 4 and add a guy.
Camera, yeah,
it's just camera.
Huh? I mean, yeah, if you need deck speed,
you do. I
guess that's one way of doing it. I definitely misread it. Honestly, in the standby list, I would consider the other check event. I think it's check 4 or 5. You get to add a Soul Trigger card. So in standby pants, you could add any climax, and then you can top or bottom after the check.
Right, like Scry.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I will say is they're very aware of the fact that their biggest pain is deck speed, because they have every deck speed 0 that exists in the set in this deck.
Yeah.
There's like pay 1, ditch 1 to check 4, pay 1, ditch 1 to check 3, mill 2, brainstorm, on death, pitch to check 4.
Yeah.
Like, we have literally every milling 0 there is in Review Starlight. So
not all of them, but there's a good amount.
A huge chunk.
Uh-huh.
And yeah. So and of course, like the level 1 combo is
just on attack salvage.
On attack salvage, and then you get power, I think, and you get like a full board.
Yeah.
A lot of what makes this sort of thing work is the 2/1 red character that lets you you can tap her to look at the top 3 of your opponent's deck and then reorder them, and then it's also 1,000. Whenever you play a character, you can give a character 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
So this lets you set up like your burn 1 twice finisher even better, like not just setting up one end of it where you set up your side, but you can also set up your opponent's side where you look, see if there's a climax. If there is, you put that sucker right on top, let it get fished off by the burn 1, and then you go in.
Yep.
I took against the standby version of this deck, I think I got clobbered like 4 or 5 games in a row. Like this finisher can be highly unreasonable if it goes off as hard as it can, and
which honestly
it does a lot of the time.
Yeah, like in this set there are ways to make it go off as hard as it can, like,
and of course we've got stock swap in case we're just absolutely loaded with money, to make our opponent be reasonable, and then we've got a pretty okay early play healer here, so and back to my like completely ruined segue. Let's talk about Soul Rush. Because going into Worlds, there are, I think, definitely at least compared to last year, there are more Soul Rush feeling things in consideration to be played
into the World's meta than I think would have been considered last year.
There are going to be no less than 3 decks, 3 different sets that have 2 soul builds that will be run. And that's 3 more than I ever want to exist in Weiss Schwarz. And then on top of that, there's another deck that has guys that just have souls. And they just hit for 3 because, I don't know, they just do.
Cats.
Yeah, so
Meow.
they have, and so Azure Lane has the benefit of having both, where they both have 2 souls and they also have these extra soul guys that they just hit you with.
Just like a 2 soul Azure Lane build.
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
like the thing about Azure Lane and about all these sets. So the 3 sets I'm referring to are Azure Lane, Slime, and Ari Ferretta. Which we haven't talked a whole lot about Ari Ferretta. We will, as we get closer to Worlds, we'll need to talk about Ari Ferretta, because Ari Ferretta is also going to fall into the same like slot as Guilty Gear, where it's like a lot of people, unless you have a local that really likes this set, you are probably never seen this set before, and it is not fun to deal with, because much like the Slime 2 souls, there's enough value kicking around to where they don't care how it turns out. If you block, they win, and if you don't block, they also win.
It's even technically a better coin flip,
Way
because if you block, they legitimately get resources, instead of you block and you're like, oh, I guess I have to try to play Muron combo, right?
Yeah, they just changed the... They have to take on more risk in the sense that like they need to open lanes to you, and they also will be giving away a lot of pluses to their opponent because their characters generally suck pre-3. Like, they do no damage, they're very low power, like they can't trade efficiently, and they bounce back to your hand, so they open up lots of lanes for your opponent to hit into. But the trade-off for that is overwhelming amounts of damage and resources one way or the other. So if you block too much, you will eventually see like 15 stock across the table from you, and you will feel the despair of knowing that you will never land another hit in the game until they pay all that crap out and refresh. But at the same time, you know, if they land all of it, sure, they may be like broke, but like you're now a level and a half behind. And so it's like, okay, you know, did you really stop them? It's like,
yeah.
oh no,
Yeah.
you're mid too. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, soul rushing does feel like, especially in deck 1, like,
yeah, like how much do we think deck 1 sucks?
yeah, and that's kind of a disappointing thing that's happening in the game right now, is that there are decks that with Ari Ferretta, it's like, okay, that's one of their combos, right? They have a combo that uses 2 souls, and then they have a combo for their finisher, and it's a garbage finisher. So they badly rely on being ahead during the game. So I don't mind that so much, because that's like a calculated risk you're taking during the game to say, okay, I'm running this 2 souls thing to generate all these resources, and if it doesn't work out because either you ate it or whatever, then the rest of my deck is kind of compromised because of this. I'm fine with that. My problem comes in with Slime, where they both don't have to run a finisher combo, and they can just jam anything in their early game, because the early game doesn't even matter. They have a number of pluses all throughout the 0 and 1 game that will sustain them and keep their hand up and fix all of their hand problems until Muron comes along to fix whatever's left. And so everything is just treading water to get to Muron and dealing as much damage as possible. And then when Muron comes in, it's like, okay, set up the end game, and then the end game just kind of happens. And it's like, we don't need climaxes, we don't need any specific finisher setups. We just need whatever sounds reasonable and like one of the 3 off finishers that we can run that all work. And it's like, that represents a fundamental design problem, where a deck does not have to actually run combos in order to have enough resources to win the game. And that is bad, in my opinion. If Azure Lane or Slime does well at Worlds, I think that sends the wrong signal to to the designers of the game, because these are decks that literally are just jamming these for damage, and because they can disrespect the entire concept of building resources correctly, because they have enough other resource sprinkling all throughout the deck that will sustain them until they can just like vanilla you into an awful position.
Yeah. And there's been much ado about how best to nerf slime, and the community consensus has been Shizu was not the problem. But it's like you have to attack the game plan in a way that matters, and so the thing that people gravitate to is like the Shuna, because that removes everybody else's counterplay for your shitty finishers. So like, you know, at least remove the hexproof to everybody, and like people can tap counter, people can opposition by shield, or so on and so forth.
I think you need to either open the game up to counterplay, or you need to do something about their end game to the point where they're incentivized to run a finisher combo of some kind to disrupt the stability of the rest of the deck. Because the fact is that there should not be decks that can just run 2 advantage engines as their 2 combos and then just ignore the entire idea of having to play an end game, because they have so many off finishers that are very reasonable and plenty of ways to use their stock that like they just don't need to. Like the fact is that the reason they can get away with this is because at no point do they need to consider, well, is there a level 3 I can run? Because they can just run all of them, and they do. They're like, there's some combination of Benimaru, Shuna, Benimaru, Xian, and Milim that it's some combination of those dudes, and they're all good, and they deal different packets, like small, medium, huge, clock kick, like cheap,
shot,
cheap, not cheap, all my stocks, no stock, like it's unbelievable the configuration that exists there, where it's just like it's so good that there's no reason to consider running any finishers, because to be fair, the slime finishers aren't that good.
Yeah.
Like they're fine, they're cheap, or they do like real consistent little packets, but like who cares?
Why would I do that?
Yeah.
Why would I have worse Marine if I can do triple Benimaru?
Yeah, and or even just like,
why would I do?
Yeah, or like, okay, well, this one is like on attack burn 4. It's like, okay, cool, but like I got a guy for that.
Yeah, and that guy has shot on it.
Yeah, and it's like, and the fact that it's free doesn't mean anything.
It's actually, it's even worse because you have to pay for the 4 memory throughout the game instead.
Yeah.
And so, but with Xian, you're like, well, I didn't need any of that memory, and I just needed 6 stock. 6 stock and like a hand, and we've got it.
Yeah. And so, like, if you think about all the finishers that they've played prior to set 3, and then even the finishers that came out in set 3, you're just like, I mean, yeah, they're fine, but why would you? Like, why risk it? Why take the risk? There's no reason to disrupt what is essentially a very stable end game in order to cram in some like questionable finishing that may not mathematically work out better than what you got already. And so it's like, is there the possibility that they could be better? Of course. Like you can easily,
I mean, maybe
you
but
can
the
easily
problem
envision
is,
like the right mathematic scenario to produce those sort of outcomes.
Yeah.
Like let's take their most wombo finisher. Let's talk about Drago Buster for half a second.
Sure, yeah.
So like Drago Buster has the potential to just out and out kill you, but you need the right setup for it. And if it doesn't work, then if it bricks, then you get almost nothing. And so it's one of those things where it's like, is the trade-off worth it? And the answer, of course, is no. No, it's not worth it. It's better to stabilize the remainder of the deck by just condensing down to 2 climaxes and just making sure you have the ones you need at every point in the game, rather than, fiddle farting about with some highly questionable finishing that you didn't even need in the first place.
And that's even another, like, quote-unquote benefit to 2 Soul, because now you don't even have a 1 combo. You didn't draw the 2 Soul? Okay, whatever.
Swap into the 2 Soul.
Yeah.
Or just jam the pants. Like,
yeah.
The pants is fine.
Yeah.
It's just damage.
Doesn't matter.
No, it's jam anything, see how much damage you can do, and then like accelerate the game to the point where like it doesn't, your finishers don't matter because like they're 3. As long as you have 3 of them that do something, you'll probably get there.
And that's the setup.
And they spend the entire game flailing because they won't have as good of a setup. Now, it's up to it's questionable like what part you want to attack to pull this whole thing apart and in a more fundamental way. It seems clear at this point that the change to Shizu did very little to affect the overall outcome of what slime decks were doing. They were never going to choose Shizu in that configuration. That was never going to happen. And so now if you're Bushiroad, you're gonna have to go back into an area where you just restricted and do something, maybe. I don't know. Like, it's one of those things where do you let it just play out because you've got more sets incoming and like maybe those.
I think you let it play out like just to after Worlds.
I mean, obviously you're not gonna do any. Yeah, of course we're not gonna do anything else now. I'm talking about like.
Oh, Springfest.
Let's say it's February, right?
Yeah.
Now you have Spy.
Yeah.
And Chainsaw Man.
Yeah.
It's like, do we think that adding those 2 decks to the format change anything about the way that like it's Slime's performance in the meta? And it's like, I don't know. But what I will say is that it's not particularly fun to play against it, and it doesn't feel like your agency in the game is very high. And so I think that in general is not a very fun experience. But I'm a known slime hater, so of course I don't think it's a very good experience. But like, I don't know. It's one of those things where it feels like I don't have any agency in the game. If I win, it's because I got lucky. If they win, it's because like I took all the damage. The end. And it's like, is that the way we want players to feel about Weiss? I don't know.
Yeah.
But soul rushing is, like it or not, is going to be a big part of Worlds because deck 1 is a highly dangerous deck, and it's your worst compression, and your chance of taking 4 is not a whole lot less than your chance of taking 3, which is also not a whole lot less than your chance of taking 2.
Which is not a whole lot worse than taking 6.
Yeah, and so like your default compression, you know, is floating around like 6 cards ish after drawing mulligan, assuming you don't like draw every climax you have. And so like 4 is not an unreasonable take. And so it was just a thing that didn't happen very often before because there was no way to deal 4. Now there's a lot of ways to deal 4. So like the Azure Lane Cats have 3 souls on climax, and so all they need is a trigger, and now that's 4. And so that's kind of like a fake 2-soul deck where like it has all the advantages of 2-soul and none of the downsides, and it sculpts itself. So to think that they won't have that every single level 0 game is just fundamentally flawed. So you kind of need to go you kind of want to hope to go first against that deck because or not go first, I'm sorry, go second and make them go first, because at the very least then you can kind of like flatten out and mitigate some of the pain. But the other thing is that the characters are huge. Like, they're not just 3 souls, they're 3 souls and like 5k. And so it's like, okay, if I tri-field you, I better have a way to like manage my hand, because everything's gonna die. So I don't know. Soul rushing is a tricky prospect right now. So
yeah, it sure is. I'm gonna test, you know, for like the month that we have, and like I pick one, and you know, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we're just gonna do the best we can.
That's how it is. But before we go on to next year and next month, we're gonna go back with 8 and look back at our year-ish of the refresh point. We did spend a lot of time on this episode already.
Yeah.
But strap in, you know. Nice little Christmas present. You get like, you know, 40 minutes talking about just slime and souls and doom and glue. Forget all that. It's time to look back on the refresh point. And we kind of did that a little bit with our little impromptu Spotify and Wrapped, but we're going to take this time to really look back and have a retrospective about us.
Yeah, it's been this is the first content creation I've ever done, and so it's been a heck of a year. I'm very happy with it.
Yeah. So some highlight episodes and moments so far. Honestly, what a breakout year in general. Like, you got top 3, and then I immediately win like the next possible like regional that I went to.
Yeah.
And just like
I was the best I was the best player on the refresh point for 1 week. It's fantastic. That's all I ever wanted.
It was like a month.
I just wanted to be good once.
It was like
and I was happy for the time that I had.
We got audio equipment fairly quickly.
Yeah, the first few episodes, if you go back and listen to them, are horrible. Like, the sound quality is miserable. One of our local friends has a room, like, he's an audio person, and so like he has a space in his house where that's where we record the refresh point now, and the acoustics of it are light years better than when we were doing it anywhere else. I think we did the first episode at your apartment.
Yep.
And then after listening to it, I was like, man, these ceilings ain't really helping.
yeah, absolutely. And so things to improve on. I do have to become a more responsible human being and start editing these at like a reasonable clip. To be fair, I think before December it was getting better, but then we just went like, what if I went out of town every weekend for 4 weekends straight? And it turns out I like using weekends to edit podcasts.
Yeah, and part of that is just me not knowing how to like pick up the slack, but we're gonna fix that too. Things I want to improve on, like, oh my gosh, like, we need some kind of symbol to cut me off. If you leave me alone and let me talk, I will just go, and it's just like,
but that's our content.
We look
Steve.
at the timer, and I'm just like, oh my god, shut up and end this episode.
No, it's okay. That's our content. We need that.
Yeah, we need like a very normal amount. I will give you more content than you want, right?
Sure.
Where's that meme with the coffee cup that's being poured and it's like way overflowing? It's like Steve given 1 second to talk about Weiss Schwarz. It's like
Yeah. And next year we'll also be launching a Ko-Fi, coffee.
Yeah. However you pronounce
Kofi.
that. Yeah, we're gonna start begging for money.
No, not really. It's just
we're gonna give you guys some additional perks for being part of the Refresh Point community. It's something we've talked about a little bit, and we are going to launch that and see where it goes.
We're gonna get some more shirts going. We're gonna get some first seconds.
Yeah, we're gonna round out our merch profile a little better
some
here.
Stickers.
Yeah.
And if you've ever wanted, I think we teased this before, and we may have mentioned it, but if you've ever wanted us to try to build your deck, we're gonna open up commissions on ambitious deck building, so that you can, for just, if you do a $5 membership, just every month you can pick between like a sticker, something else, or just making us play your fucking deck. And we'll go out there and do our level best to do it.
Yeah, I mean, if you value our opinion enough to listen to us on a regular basis and give us money, by God, we will do our best to evaluate whatever it is that you want us to evaluate.
Yeah, we'll give it a shot. We'll give it our level best to just make your deck idea the best we possibly can. You can give us every detail possible, like, yeah, man, you're gonna run these 2 climax combos, and all these tech cards are real important and all this. I want to see how it does with this tech card versus this tech card. Or you can just be like, hey, try this. And we're like, all right. I guess we're trying this.
But yeah, we'll for sure break down everything that will be part of that. It will be obviously 100% optional. If you love the refresh point just the way it is, we will keep delivering this content till we're absolutely sick of it. But if you want some more refresh point, can't get enough of us, our mugs, the way we look, our very exciting
Our mugs?
Yeah, so like
Where are our mugs besides the top 8 photos?
So
This is a podcast.
There will be, because
Oh, okay. All right.
yeah,
Got it. Yeah.
we'll have designs for the old first, seconds, and stickers that will be very refresh point host oriented.
Yeah. We'll have some fun with it. And so if you felt like throwing $5 at us a month for any particular reason, then that option will now be available to you. And as Steve said, like, we're gonna keep doing it, and we're not in it for the money. We're here to just like talk about Weiss Schwarz every 2 weeks, you know. But if you would like to support us a little bit, you know, so we can replace our shitty fucking mic stands, you know, go ahead. We'll do our best to make it worth your while. And to round out the show today, we've got some awards. You know, we've got all these lovely things going on. We've got some nice little joke awards to end our year with.
Just a few high points.
Just a few high points. Best comment of the year. You know, we didn't really even expect that many comments to come in. But YouTube works in mysterious ways, and you all love just typing in that comment box. So, number one, shout out to all the comments in general. Shout out to Kix Machina as well, and 212 Dad from the recent episodes. Chainfire, you know, all our regular commenters, Vegeta, for God's sake, Sati. I don't think there's any more super regular ones, but shout out to all you commenters anyways. And for our best comment of the year, it's gonna go to MP Dragon 64, which I believe you also outed yourself as Clinton in a later comment. So shout out to you, Clinton, for our New York episode where we remarked that it was a pretty fraudulent attempt at defending home court.
Yeah, I mean, it
really was.
It really was.
Like, yeah, true. You're so right, bestie. Yeah, for sure. Next up, the best ambitious deck of the year.
We did a handful of ambitious decks, and some of them not very ambitious. They were like just riffs on like a reasonable idea. A lot of them review Starlight, Fever Dreams that we don't ever want to relive. But
but we do have an ambitious deck that, you know, really took our childhood ambitions to say master some elements and combined it with a reasonable meta competitive kind of list.
yeah,
And that was our Avatar Master of the Elements list from episode 11.
yeah. So 4-color Avatar. Before everybody started becoming fascinated with Bar Standby, 4-color Avatar seemed to be like one of the best things that could come out of the Avatar set, and I still believe that there is a way to make that deck really shine. The problem is that, like, much like in the show, you have to be the one guy. Like you're gonna need to,
you have
like,
to be
train.
the one.
You have to train everywhere. Like
you
years.
have to be the Avatar.
That's right. And so I fully anticipate someone to do it. I don't know who, and when they do, we will all we'll know who the best Weiss Schwarz player in the world is, because it will be that guy. But that was the deck that I felt had the best, mixture of ambition and actual results.
Yeah. And we just left, but we can't go back to a familiar place, a comfortable place, a place where we take refuge and look at competitive Weiss Schwarz damn near every single episode. Let's talk about what we think was the best Spike Corner of the year.
Yeah.
The Spike Corner is a lot of things. It's a lot of the times tournament recaps, which I agree. I think we can do better. They kind of get a little monotonous after some time. We just kind of be like, oh, hey, look, top 8 deck. Here's the tech cards. Okay, now here's the other one. Admittedly, we can do a better job. But on some of the Spike Corners where we go over topics and just better, more generic topics, even similar to just talking about Soul Rush just right now, I feel like that's where the Spike Corner really shines.
Yeah.
And so if you haven't listened to it, or you haven't listened to it in a while, I think our choice for the best Spike Corner, and you can go back and listen to, is in episode 14, where we were discussing nerves and how that affects your play in a competitive TCG environment.
Yeah, I think that there's some topics that we talk about in the Spike Corner and that come up during the course of card game play, in particular competitive play, that cut across the spectrum much more broadly. If you've competed at anything in your whole life, then you can sympathize, understand, and compare yourself with the type of nerves that you feel when you're going into any competitive event. And so that applies to Weiss Schwarz as well as it applies to anything else. And so I think it's important to, every once in a while, get a little more abstract, talk about the nature of competition in general, because those type of things will carry you, being good at those type of things will carry you into other games and any other competitive endeavors that you happen to be a part of.
Yeah. And for the last few awards, some funny ones, do you have the envelope? I don't think I have the envelope.
All right, yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, it's here.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, our best guest of the year. We had a lot of candidates for this one. Truly, this show has been, it's the hallmark of this show is the rotating guest line that we have on all of the time. That's just, if you're a longtime listener, we have so many guests, and it's rare that
it was hard to choose.
It's rare that only me and Steve are the ones on the podcast, really just chopping it up. But our best guest of the year, and if you haven't caught on, our only guest of the year was Clinton Chan. Congratulations. Thank you for bestowing upon all of us your wisdom. And
feel free to add that to your competitive profile wherever you're for whatever your sponsor's website is, whenever they're pimping you out to events.
Yeah, you got the best guest of the year award from yours truly.
That's right.
That's right.
Next year we will probably have more guests than we had this year.
I think we're gonna have one literally start of the next year. Even.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna become a regular thing, but I think
we'll have some more guests.
Mixing it up a little bit. Yeah, those are the chocolate chips, man. You can't. They can't be the whole cookie, but you gotta get a few of them in there. It makes things more interesting. So
for sure. Our next award, there's a lot of older players in the Weiss Schwarz community that have been playing just for a very long time. And, they really are kind of the bedrock of the community at times. Some might say they could even stand as tall as a mountain in their presence in the Weiss Schwarz community. And in our community, we will lovingly refer to them as the old man of the mountain. And so for this show, the best old man of the mountain this year, I think there's no one else that can inhabit this. It has to be you, Steve.
Yeah, I will happily accept And if you are familiar with the Fate lore, you will know there are many old men of the mountain.
Ah, yes.
But we do have one thing in common. We are all assassins. So you best watch yourself. If you run into one of us old fucks, because we've been playing this game longer than you've been able to use complex math, so you best respect it.
Wait, have you?
Yes. I mean, like...
Wait, yeah, wait.
Ben, you weren't even in high school when I started playing Weiss
Yeah,
Schwarz.
so yeah, that's... no, that's legitimately right.
So yeah,
Yep.
the old man of the mountain, all of us that have been keeping the game alive and thriving since its inception, especially for the entire English scene, you know, nothing makes me happier than getting clobbered by somebody who's new to the game, because it shows that we're becoming more mature as a game. You know, the alternative is absolutely shit. And so we don't want the game to stagnate. We never want the relics, those of us that are on the, that have been around for a while. We don't want those of us to stay the best forever. That's not appropriate.
You can have like one or two.
Yeah, of course.
We can have a faker.
We're never
around.
Gonna be the worst.
Yeah,
we've just been around too long.
Yeah.
But
Clinton will just win Chicago every year, I guess.
Yeah, I don't even know why we go. To be
true,
honest.
Yeah, honestly.
Like, it's one of those things. But
or Houston. Riaz will just win that every year as well. It's
to be honest though, like, I mean, a lot of us outdate Riaz. And so it's one of those things where I've had and all of us have had kind of the privilege of seeing the game like start as this kind of like, we have like 5 people at a local and we're going to try and like teach anime cards to people, to seeing the game really explode. I never thought there would ever be a 300 person like regional for Weiss. Like they would always be like, well, if there's 256 players, we have to split it into 2 tournaments, and we'd all laugh our asses off because like there ain't no way.
What they do is they put you in 9 rounds of Swiss, Steve.
Well, they've changed the rules since then, but yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah. I'm happy to inhabit that. I'll be the hermit. Yeah, that's my role to be.
We have one more award here. I think you wanted to present it, so I'm not quite sure what it is.
Yeah,
but
I do want to present it because if there's one thing that's true about the refresh point, it's that we embody competitive Weiss Schwarz. And in competitive Weiss Schwarz, you can talk a lot about how long you've been playing or what you've been playing or how the game was, is, or will be, but results are the main thing we're looking for. That's what speaks, right? And so it's absolutely my honor to say that the award for the best refresh point player this year is absolutely you, Ben. I was the best for like 2 weeks. And then like you won Duluth and I was like, okay, yeah, Ben's cracked. And then like just casually top 8'd again in a tournament that didn't matter. I'm like, okay, apparently I'm garbage. Holy shit. I better watch out. So yeah, it's been an incredible year. This is like your first real competitive year, and you've just been absolutely stomping.
Yeah.
I'm very happy.
Yeah, I mean, what is it? I have no reservations about ever doing this well again. Or like I'm not taking it for granted at all. Like it's like as much as very hilarious, like side note, at Anaheim, I coped for like 30 minutes after Swiss ended. I was like, I can't believe that just happened. Surely I bubble out. I don't want to play a top 8. I want to go get food. Like I didn't get lunch. I'm just like, this doesn't matter. I don't really feel like taking a top 8 from somebody that like wants to qualify and do well and stuff. And so the other 2 players who attended can attest that I definitely whined the most out of any top 8 attendee probably ever in this game.
It's just suffering from success.
But yeah, I mean, I don't like metas change, decks change, you know, player skill goes up and down. I don't ever anticipate that like I will do something near this again, or like, you know, I will win another regional, in the sense of like it's an expectation. It's more of the same ambitions as it's always has been.
Yeah, and I think that like there's plenty of players out there, if we're talking on the high end of Weiss Schwarz, that are making top 8s regularly, you know?
Yeah.
But 3 top 8s out of 4 tournaments is crazy good. So yeah, very impressed. I think that it's been a heck of a year.
Yeah, DFW on top. The Dallas Fort Worth area has a 100% top 8 rate for tournaments that we have sent players to this fall.
Yeah.
Every single tournament, even in the Netherlands, we got a player into the top 8.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think we've already said that this is the best region for Weiss Schwarz. I don't know what to say. It's not even a question. It's just like a statement that everybody knows. So, but yeah, it's been an incredible year for a lot of people, and we've got a ton of people going to Worlds. So, yeah,
it's gonna be awesome.
Next year's gonna be great too.
And one last thing, thank you, listener. All of you regular listeners that just pop on every time you see us in your content feed, you know, your Spotify, your YouTube page, or whatever. You know, every single one of you, from the people that tuned in the whole time and be done with it, the people that click for 30 seconds and then click away, I know that you exist. We have the analytics. All right, man, 30 seconds, really cool. But thank you anyway, because, you know, we wanted to do this just to do it, but it does make it better when there's somebody to talk to.
Yeah, and for all of our subscribers, the people who, you know, they're the first clicks on there. I have never been the first person to view our content, even when I know it's coming out. You know, there's people who are getting to that stuff like the second it comes out. And we saw on Spotify, it's international. There's people in other countries listening to us, which is incredible for me. So yeah, to all of our subscribers, to everyone who clicks on our videos and listens to us for even a few minutes to listen to us rant about something that you have a tangential interest in, thank you. It's been an enjoyable year, and we're looking forward to another year of refresh points.
Yeah, I mean, we'll keep doing this as long as Weiss is still a game, presumably. So, you know, I mean, even if Weiss goes away, we might just pivot to a different card game.
Yeah, like, it may become difficult to get rid of us.
Yeah, honestly. We'll just keep doing this until we feel like not doing it, which is going to be a pretty long time away from now, I'd guess.
As far as I know.
So, thank you for sticking around. Stick around for Refresh Point, 10 more years, whatever. But that's our show for today. So, tune in next time after your next deck out, and don't you forget to take the refresh point.